Hey guys, Kaylee Jane here with Cedar Winds Farm. I'm just letting my goats slowly graze their way homeward here this evening. And I just filmed a bunch of kind of random stuff that I was doing out in the winter pasture. It's just kind of, I find myself just thinking through things and looking at different aspects of different things while I'm out working around, and so I just kind of filmed some of that as I thought it might be helpful or interesting for some of you. And it's just been fun this winter since I'm not milking through this winter. I have a little bit more time and energy on my hands to work on some other projects, and so yeah, I've just been having fun experimenting with getting the goats out in the winter time and figuring out some of the logistics for that. And I've been very pleased with some of the land clearing that they have done this winter as well. So I just shared a little bit about that, and it's kind of a rambly video, but I hope you will enjoy it. Let me know what you'd like to see or know more about. I'm trying to just share either information that I think will be fun and entertaining, or information that I wish I'd known when I started out with goats. I would just love to be able to be of help to you. Obviously, I don't know everything there is to know about everything, but if there is something that you'd like to see more of, please do let me know. So I've got a little bit over 6 weeks until kidding season starts, which is really not that long at all. Hi, Josephine. Hello. Pretty one. Josie's moving a little bit better, which I'm really happy about. She was having hoof problems because of the damp weather, and then I think she also was starting to founder. It took me a little bit of time to catch on to what was happening there, but I just added in a little bit more alfalfa into their daily hay ration, and I think it was probably just a little too rich for her. She's very sensitive. She's an extremely easy keeper. She gets fat on next to nothing, produces lots of milk on very minimal feed input, but because I didn't really know a whole lot about goats when I started out, and honestly, there still isn't much information out there that I've been able to find about goat founder. Most of the information that I know is from horses, which is rather different. But anyway, I didn't really know a whole lot about goats when I started, and I think I probably foundered her at some point, her first lactation, and since then she's just had lots of different hoof issues. So I'm going to be a lot more mindful of that in the future. I'm going to, especially with her daughter Butte, I'm really watching her feet and watching just for signs that she's getting sore. But anyways, so with Josie, I've just cut back a lot on the alfalfa. I've been pinning her up separate while I feed the other goats their alfalfa so that she doesn't get it, and I keep treating her feet as well for the thrush that she's been dealing with, and that is clearing up. So she's definitely still sore. She definitely spends more time laying around than she normally should, but she is moving more freely, so I'm hopeful that we're headed in the right direction now. So I just got done spreading some hay around. I was religiously moving my feeders about every 2 to 3 days just to create a nice even layer of even layer of hay around here, but I got busy and they sat in place for about a week. So I ended up with some really thick mats of hay like in this area here, but that's actually still a little bit thick there. But anyway, if it's too thick, you're not going to get anything that's going to grow through it. I seeded clover in here a while back, and actually some of it is starting to sprout. The stuff that's under the hay might be a bit slower to sprout, just because the hay is going to insulate it from the heat as well as from the cold. But I wanted the hay down just to protect the soil and also to keep my seed from washing away when it rained. So we're just going to see how this goes. This little paddock area is where my sister normally keeps her pigs. So when her sows start farrowing, she's probably going to be using it again. So I'm not going to go too crazy trying to seed stuff, and because she's going to get torn up again. But I thought it would be fun to just experiment with it and just kind of see what works and what doesn't. Because eventually I'd like to have a grazing system in place where I have the goats a lot more mobile, and I can move their feeding areas and their bedding areas around a lot more than I'm doing right now, with the goal of being able to use them to put mulch down on areas of ground that need some mulch, and then go in and seed as well. The goats just aren't very destructive to the soil, so it makes them very nice, a nice animal to use in an area where the soil is really disturbed, or where there's lots of open muddy ground. This winter has been so warm that we've just had lots and lots of mud this winter. Not a lot of freezing has happened, and so, you know, if I'd had cows in here, this area would be a disaster. It would be churned up. It would be awful. But because the goats are such a small, lightweight animal, the ground is really looking pretty good still. It's not just a mud soup in here. And so, yeah, I just want to see how they do with the seed that's sprouting, if having them in here is going to be detrimental to the sprouting process at all. So I seeded this area here, and then on the other side of the fence there's some bare earth where the pigs were as well, but the goats are fenced out of there, and I seeded that as well. So that's kind of like my control group, I guess, just to see, like, does the seed do better in one area than it does in another area. So I'm just kind of playing with it. I'm not really expecting any exciting major outcomes, but I just thought it would be fun to experiment and as hopefully someday apply what I've been learning this winter to on a larger scale in a larger grazing system. Found a couple of cardinal feathers. The hawks are really active today. I was just listening to a couple of owls calling to each other. This is mating season for a lot of different birds. I was hoping the owls would keep calling so I could get it on video, but they seem to have said what they need to say already. These hay feeders are getting a little bit harder to use because they're getting bent out of shape. Probably if I used a heavier gauge of wire, they would last a little bit longer, but this was just what I had on hand. And it's still working, but you can see it looks kind of wonky. Doesn't hang as straight anymore because it's bent out of shape. But anyways, it's still holding hay. And the goats probably won't be in this pasture for too much longer, so hopefully they'll last until I can get them moved somewhere else. They're definitely consuming less hay now, so I'm going to be taking a pasture walk here pretty soon to look and see what's growing, because they're not going through as much hay, so they must be getting food from somewhere else. So they're obviously not super hungry. Cleo's picking through the hay on the ground, even though there's a spot at this feeder right here. Hi, Alfred. You gonna come say hello? You's just hanging out with me. Oh, stop. Linus, stop. That's how my hay feeders are getting torn up. Linus? See how he bent that hay feeder in the middle? He just like lunges over the top of it at the other goats and smashes it. Linus, quit. Quit. TBH, Huckleberry probably has it coming. He's been a bully for a long time and he deserves to be bashed around a little bit, but for gosh sakes, guys. He does this thing to intimidate the other goats where he hits stuff with his horns. Not hard, but just enough to make a noise. So like he hits, at home he hits their hay feeder, which is made out of tubular steel, and so it makes this tonk, tonk, tonk sound. And here he keeps clicking his horns on this one too. Just to show he's the big boss, I guess. He was not supposed to have horns, and neither was Sunday. But they were my first ever alpines, and I did not realize that alpines are totally different than Nubians. They mature a lot faster. I disbudded them at about a week or 10 days, which would have probably been fine for Nubians, but they did not do a whole lot for them. So, I mean, he has a full set of horns. She has, these are skurs. They're not full horns, but they're pretty large still. Oh my gosh. And so from that I learned that you got to disbud them a lot earlier. So last year I did my Nubian Alpine crosses at about, oh shoot, it was between 5 days and a week, I believe, and that still wasn't soon enough. I still ended up with some skurs that regrew on one of my kids. And so this year I'm doing them at like 3 days old, which seems really harsh, but I think that's what I'm gonna have to do to keep them from having horns. And having a horned goat Sunday quit is not the end of the world, but they just do tend to be a bit more aggressive, and they really can tear stuff. I mean, case in point, my hay feeders, you know, it just tears stuff up a lot. He's not nearly as destructive as some of my horned goats that I've had, but it's still, you know, just a little bit more challenging. Just pulled this hair out of Sunday. Looks like she's starting to shed. Oh my gosh, these goats. I don't think these hay feeders stand much of a chance. Well, if they can just last a few more weeks, then we'll have some more fences up and some more green, hopefully, for them to be able to eat and won't have to feed as much hay. What do you think, Huckleberry? Hey, good boy. I love you too. He wants you to scratch his wattles. That's what he's doing when he lifts his head like that. Are you getting a good scratch there, Alfred? Oh my gosh, my poor hay feeders.